Hi friends, how are you? In this technical series, I'll be explaining about how to make the paint. So this will be very interesting for young entrepreneurs. Before taking up this project, you should be aware of the choice of paints. For example, as far as wall paints are concerned, you have to choose exterior or interior paints. Before taking up any surface coatings, we should be aware of the substrate where we are going to coat. Likewise, based on the substrate, we can have variety of paints. I have listed a few here: exterior wall paints, interior wall paints, enamels. Enamels means that is dry air drying enamels in this case, because we have got stoving enamels also. And then we should be aware of the cheap putty paints. So these paints are applied after the primer. Let it be the metal surface or the concrete surface or the civil structures. We need to fill up the pits or any surface undulations with cheap putty paints. And this is applicable for wooden surface also. But as I already mentioned, for different substrate, we have to use different types of paints. Then primers followed by finishes. What's the difference between primer and finish? Primer consists of extenders in larger ratio, whereas a finish, it consists mainly the pigments. After all, paint is nothing but pigmented varnish. Pigment is nothing but the coloring agents. And we should know something about the paint accessories also. Then, is it water based or solvent based? So these things are very important. And as far as the solvent based paints are concerned, we need to take care of the safety aspects and the environmental aspects. Now let us talk about the uniqueness of this project. Suppose if I take the water-based emulsion paint, water being the universal solvent, it should be available where the paint industry or this project is to be started. And we should cater the needs of domestic market. And as far as internal customers are concerned, suppose if it is done by or if this project is initiated by any, that is government organized small groups, that is self-help groups, probably the government themselves can support with their procurement for finishing the government buildings, school buildings and highways. As far as highways are concerned, that is, you should know something about the road markings and the safety markings on street, etc. And by starting this small scale self-help, that is manufacturing units, you can generate the employment locally. Now let us talk about the raw materials. Pigments, as I already mentioned, they are imparting, that is giving colors. After all, when a paint is applied on a surface, it has three purposes. One is decorative purpose, second is protective purpose, and there are other uses like functional purposes also. For example, when I paint a tar road or any trees, on the sides of the road, the tree does not require any color, but whenever vehicle's headlight falls on that tree, particularly this white or black and white, or that is luminescent coatings, they immediately reflect so that we can drive our vehicle safely. And let me come back to the raw materials, emulsions and polymers, extenders. I'm talking about here the that is water based paints, where they are applicable on civil structures. Then extenders can be called pseudo pigments or false pigments, like china clay. Then you've got titanium. I'm not titanium. Titanium is a true pigment, whereas extender is a false pigment. So, in order to reduce the cost of the paint, we can incorporate such type of, surface fillers. So, these extenders may be some, as I already mentioned, china clay, soapstone, etc. Then the paints may require some additives, and as we all agree, water is the universal solvent, so the quality of water is also very important. And we need to add some monomers and some diluents. So these are the major raw materials to manufacture some water based paints like emulsion paints, distemper paints, etc. I'm here focusing only the that is water based paints. So probably that is I would have mentioned or highlighted with blue color. Okay, we are not touching up on the enamel paints and other types of paints, but we'll be discussing about water based paints that can be applied on civil structures. Then water based paints, what could be the process? After all, water based paints are manufactured with the major process called the dispersion of pigments and extenders. So, the dispersion is grinding into a paste, and finally it is made up to the required volume. And the major pigments are titanium dioxide and the required color pigments. Then we need to add some extenders also, like talc, which is nothing but soapstone, then calcium carbonate, that is calcite, clay, etc. And as I already mentioned, these extenders are surface fillers, so that it can fill up the surface. That is, if the surface is rough, it will smoothen. And then, in fact, that is the main objective of application of paint is to hide the surface, is it not? Then, and therefore the opacity is a very important term to be considered. Then, mixed in water under vigorous agitation. So this is called the pre-mixing stage. So all these pigment extenders and part quantity of that is emulsion should be mixed under vigorous agitation using a proper premixer or premixing unit, and followed by that is it should be finely ground, preferably using sand mill. We have got different machineries based on the requirement of the type of paints. Then the slurry is further diluted by adding emulsion and water, and it can be thickened up by using proper thickening agents, so that we can attain the required viscosity. And then we need to obtain the required physical parameters, that is very important. The final paint is filled in containers and dispatched. So this is the simple story or the process about the manufacturing of any emulsion paints, let it be exterior or for interior. And then see, now let me go in detail about the process. Here The raw material should be properly tested because the quality of the product depends on the quality of the raw material you are going to use. And then it should be properly stored also. Then we need weighing and the transfer of appropriate raw materials into the mill. Then the dispersion and grinding operation. And then we need to stabilize the dispersion. And the dispersion is pumped into the blending or the mixing unit. Then we need to incorporate other additives by using that is a proper additive or the suitable agents, and these additives are added in small quantities to provide a particular property to the paint. For example, if the paint is too thin, we need to use a thickening agent. If there is any bubble or foaming, we need to use the anti-foaming agents. So likewise, we have special chemicals which serve the purpose of a particular parameters of the paint. Now, tinting is nothing but attaining the required color by using the stainers or tinting agents. Then the samples should be taken for color evaluation and analysis, and we need to check other rheological properties of the film also. Then finally we have to check the viscosity and density. Then we need to add additives as I already mentioned, then dryers if necessary to meet the viscosity and drying specifications. And then the material is strained and filtered for a better standards. Then it should be filled into cans, and then the product is gravimetrically or volumetrically filled into cans and should be labeled. Finally, it is kept in the storage or in warehouse, and it should be ready for the dispatch to the customer. So this is the entire process about the emulsion paint. Now let us check this. A flow diagram is a simple one. Here you can see that this is the high speed dispenser where we add the powders, then additives and water, then all these are mixed, and again it is fed to the another mixing unit, and where that is you may use here the sand mill also after pre-mixing, and appropriate grinding is taking place here, and after that the viscosity is adjusted by transferring this into a making up tank, and after tinting it is ready for the filling. Then the key stages of manufacture: pre-mixing, dispersion, mixing and filling. So pre-mixing to facilitate the grinding, dispersion is mixing and grinding, and mixing is to add this is the important stage where some of the additives are added to attain the required properties, and also we need to adjust the viscosity of the end product. Finally it is ready for filling. Then let us talk about the dispersion. So we have measured quantities of raw material that should be ready with the weighing scales. Then pigments, extenders, water and small additives are added as per the formula. And then the dispersion equipment, which is nothing but a high speed disperser, is used for mixing and grinding the paint. Finally, we are able to produce the slurry, and the disperser is run for specified time as required by the recipe, because we need to attain the grinding level. So usually it is represented in Hegmont units. Then the finish and the particle size distribution of the slurry is checked with the grindometer. Then finally the slurry is transferred to the mixing tank and the mixing tanks are intermittently agitated and proper coloring is achieved here. Then the balance emulsion, resin, water and other additives are added into the mixer as per the formula. Then the mixer is run for specified time as required by the recipe to prepare the paint, because based on the different types of pigments and extenders we need to judge the grinding time and grinding level also. Then the density, viscosity, strength are checked in the laboratory, and this is the continuous, the regular process of quality checking. And finally, the paints are filled. Before that, it should meet all quality parameters, and they are filled into the containers with the different pack size: 250 ml, 500 ml, 1 liter, and 4 liter, 20 liter, 10 liter, etc. And the weight to volume conversion should be made here, because you may work out all these things based on the weight, and finally you will be selling as volume. So the weight to volume conversion is very important. And then quality standards. When we talk about the quality standards, we need to know, be aware of these British standards, 15489 2004 for this kind of acrylic paints, and type 2 for acrylic paints. Then wet opacity, drying time, finish color, alkali resistance, then scrubbability, wet scrubbability, and overall look and feel of the paint should be checked. And then normally ordinary paints may range from 90 rupees per liter, even that is, it may go up to 650 rupees per liter. High sheen paints, it may cost 120 rupees per liter and maximum 600 per liter. And enamel paints 200 rupees per liter, and maximum price may be even 800 rupees per liter. The price factors are very, very important. They are based on the type of resin you are using, pigments, the type of pigments, pigmentation, that is how much pigment you are using, and the quality of resin as I already mentioned, then additives and solvents. And then let us talk about the cost inputs. That is, the land is a very important aspect. That is, what is the area you are having, then production capacity, machinery and equipment, required equipments, then raw materials, then intermediates, manpower, sales overhead, power, safety, environment standards, technical know-how, logistics and profit. All these are the cost inputs. Then when we talk about the implementation schedule, probably that is, we need to select the appropriate site and get the approval from the government. Then preparation of the project, it may take 1 to 3 months, and a provisional registration, it may take another one week or 2 weeks, and we should be ready with the financial budgets. It may take 3 to 6 months. Then we need to procure the machinery within 5 months, and we will install the required machineries and other setup, electrification, then commissioning of machinery, all other facilities, and that will happen within 3 months. And finally, we should get the no objection certificate from Pollution Control Board. So all these are very, very important in the implementation stage. The budget, probably that is the lowest budget, maybe 3 to 10 lakhs, and moderate budget we can have 15 to 60 lakhs. Then standard budget is 3 to 20 crores. High level budgets with full automatic machinery setup, it may cross even 30 crores. And to start with, our young entrepreneurs, they can start the paint unit even with the lowest budget of rupees 3 lakhs, 3 to 5 lakhs. And finally, I should talk about the safety and environmental standards. So you should have the proper firefighting system and first aid. Then you should educate your workers how to handle the raw materials, intermediates and products. Then we should be aware of handling the machineries. Appropriate training is required here. Then material safety standards, safety MS used to say, that is MST, product data sheet and material safety data sheet. All these things should be provided, and then the water should be pre-treated so that it can be effectively utilized in our paint making, and as well it should be post-treated before letting this into any gutter. So that effluent part is very important, effluent treatment. And then waste management, that is how to handle the solid waste, liquid waste and semi-solid waste. So proper training should be undertaken in this aspect. Okay, so I hope you should have enjoyed this video training, and if you are very much interested to start your paint unit, you can contact me in the comment column, and based on that I'll be able to give you my online recommendations. Thank you for watching this video.